Allie.
Adam.
You're looking sporty today.
I am.
Which is not a sentence. I don't know if I've ever said that to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm still photographing the cookbook.
Right.
And my range
Which
of
is
motion.
Like, kind of like sports.
It's a sport. But my range of motion only gets better if I wear clothes that I work out in.
Right, yeah.
One time I wore like black jeans. I don't know why I told you the color.
It's
but
important.
It was really difficult to like squat.
Yeah. But you need to be mobile and agile. So
yeah.
whatever you'd wear to a yoga class, that's like the best
cookbook
photography attire for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing, like wedding photographers kind of have to feel like they dress up because they're in a
you
wedding.
Have to fit into a wedding.
You don't want to dress up.
Yeah.
You want to wear like yoga pants.
Especially on a hot day.
Yeah.
On the podcast today, we have Gretel and Steve.
They are married like us.
They are married to each other.
Yep.
And they own a business together. And that business is
Sunny Meadows Flower Farm.
And they farm flowers. I can tell that from the name right away. It's obvious to me. And then, why is that cool?
Well, I think it's cool because they've been around for a while. I think the idea started around 2005 or 7. So
I think that's true because in this episode they say that.
I know. I just have
that's kind of how
I have a bad memory. We're recapping. We're not like sharing like.
We're pre-capping.
Yeah, we're pre-capping.
It's like a recap before it starts.
We talked to them about starting that business and how I really liked how from the beginning they had to make it a business. It was very much their only
source of income
together. A lot of times you and I meet people who are doing their business alone, they're going at it alone, but they have a spouse who has a job, and I think we've always liked connecting with Steve and Gretel about the fact that they're both in it 100%, but that you also have a lot of strengths that come with that, in that someone else can handle one part of the business while you're focusing on something else.
Yeah. And their fields and barn and everything is like right next to their house. You know, like it's very, And I feel like we are like that.
For sure.
Where it resonates. Yeah, that's our world.
For sure. So we talked to them about scaling.
Yeah, that was interesting. I thought that as far as how they talked about thinking through hiring people and taking an income and when to pay themselves and
choosing the lifestyle, like choosing the lifestyle over the salary or the money.
Yeah.
The thing about it is everyone that we talk to is obviously profitable because they exist at that moment.
Yeah.
But that's not always, the goal isn't always to make $1 million. It's to have flexibility, but there's still limitations and struggle within that process of getting there.
Yeah. Whatever they gain in flexibility, or they trade something else off.
So it's great. We love their product. We love their flowers. We love seeing how they get a little scrappy with the winter here in Ohio. Things don't grow the same way as in the spring and the summer. So I love talking about that.
No, that's really cool. They're like cool people. They always like, they always have like dirt in their fingernails. You know, like it's people
great.
who are actually working.
Yeah,
you know?
with
I
their
sometimes feel like when I'm around them, I'm always like, oh yeah, I could
do more. I need to weed our front lawn. But yeah, keep listening to hear more from them, and subscribe. Should we ask people to subscribe? I don't know. We don't
subscribe to our podcast or any podcast.
Or anyone's.
Just
go subscribe to some podcasts
or a newspaper,
YouTube channels, the New York Times. I don't really care. Whatever you
One
want.
of those, a YouTube channel, New York Times, or our podcast. Any of those things. Subscribe to them.
It's totally up to you. It's free country.
Review them. Write reviews about them on places.
Yep. Wherever you subscribe, write a review. All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Okay, so today on the podcast we have Steve and Gretel from Sunny Meadows Flower Farm. Adam, how do we
Gretel, what is that?
Yeah, you explain it.
So we are an urban flower farm, specializing in cut flowers. So we do flowers for farmers markets. We sell to florists, grocery stores. We do flowers for weddings. We've got an on-farm farm stand. We ship flowers. So kind of lots of different sales outlets, but mixed bouquets being our biggest product that we sell, which kind of like absorbs whatever is happening through the season. So we say it's like a botanical adventure through the season, because mixed bouquets is something that we have all through the year. But then they just kind of change based on what's blooming.
Okay.
So you grow flowers on a farm.
Yes.
That is yours.
Yes.
And then you have people who work for you, and you all grow flowers together, and then pick them, harvest them.
Everything is done by hand.
Gotcha.
So from seed to planting it in the ground to harvesting the flowers, making all the bouquets,
selling them.
Everything's done by hand. So
Dang.
why
did you do why did you do that? It's not something I would imagine someone just being like, let's start a flower farm.
We always say that farming kind of found us, so it was never something that we like planned to do.
No, we started out growing vegetables. That was our big what we really wanted to do, and slowly just transitioned into flowers. It kind of became our niche.
Because
our idea was to kind of live off of the land. So we met a guy who was a farmer. Steve worked at a coffee shop and met a guy, and we worked on his farm for a summer, and we like just fell in love with it. So he grew flowers mainly. He did some like vegetables and produce, but flowers were his main thing. So that's kind of how we got into the flowers. As far as like where we are, my father purchased the land in the 80s, and the city kind of like grew around it. So like I have a picture of me like as a little girl, and it's just like totally open. Really? So now, you know, there's housing developments, and we're kind of on the edge of the hood, but we say it's a little piece of the country in the city. But so my father passed away when I was young, and the land was left to me in a trust. And so I knew that the land was like coming to me, but I never knew what I was going to do with it. I always thought I'd rent it out to a nursery or something, because I knew I didn't want it to like be developed. So the land like transitioned to me kind of the same time that we met this farmer, and everything kind of like fell together. Cool. Like the first year we plowed up the front field and like kind of decided that this is what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And the year before, I kind of got consumed by gardening and had like three different plots.
What year was that?
Yeah, what year?
When were you consumed by gardening for the first time? This is such a funny... We talk to people about their businesses all the time, and so when someone's like, oh, I started this thing, that's more... But online, you just never hear the flower farm.
Yeah.
You know?
2005, I think.
Yeah, 2005 was the year that we met, so...
Yeah, and I had 3 different garden plots all around. I just really fell in love with growing it. I wasn't necessarily like harvesting it and cooking it and stuff, but I just really loved growing it. And it kind of gave me something to put I'm one of those type of people like put all their energy into something, and so it's something positive that I could put all my energy into at that point. And I really enjoyed being outside. I just love growing stuff.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I mean, and we were young, so like people ask Steve what he was into before farming, and he says trouble. So farming kind of like helped us grow up. Like
both of us.
Yeah.
In many ways, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the answer to one of our questions.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, like, because I was, we've been doing it for 11 years. So
how old were you in 2005?
I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, in the beginning, it was like we decided this is what we were going to do, but it was also like really hard work and took a lot of our time, and all our friends were still like young and partying, you know? So in the beginning, I kind of like resented it for making me grow up so fast, but now I feel like I'm really grateful that we started so young, because we're in our 30s and we can, you know, enjoy our business that's established. Like we went on a real vacation this winter for the first time, which was awesome.
Takes a while to get there.
Yeah, to know that, like, especially when there's greenhouses and it's going to snow, and like, we have dogs and someone has to stay at the house and
there's
stuff.
There's something to being young and naive too, you know, just trying something and not really having as much to lose. I don't know if I would jump into it like I did at this age, but I always say that we were really naive, and she's like, why do you say that? But there's something to it, I think.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
You know, that was something that, like, you guys asked, like, to what did you, like, experiment? But, like, the whole farm was an experiment.
Yeah.
You know, like, we had no idea what it could be, or we didn't really, like, set specific goals. We were just, like, we're working really hard to, like, make it happen. And even, like, the other farmers that we talked to were like, one of you should keep a day job. Like, there's no way that you'll have 2 incomes and be able to support a household. Like, what about retirement? You know, all of those things. So we were kind of like the beginning of the movement of, like, young farmers back to the land. Yeah. So now there's a lot more people doing it. And now it's almost like we're not the young ones anymore.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
But so now we're at the point where we're, like, going to conferences and, like, helping mentor people just like how we learned, you know.
Who are starting their own farms.
Yeah. So we write for Growing for Market, which is, like, a farming publication, and we speak at conferences. So we're actually hosting the Fall Flower Growers Conference at the farm, which is, like, pretty exciting for us.
Really
kind of a big deal, because it's like all of the people that have been our mentors, like, are now going to come to our farm to tour the place.
That's amazing.
And, like, hear us talk about the farm. So it's like all the pieces of things that we've learned and farms that we've visited that we've brought back to our farm. You know, everybody will be able to see that. Yeah.
But then learning still evolves too. Like, this year we went to Vermont and toured a bunch of vegetable farms out there and brought back a lot of things that really help just kind of finalize some of these ideas or these efficiencies that we're trying to implement. So
Like,
we're still reaching out to people.
And learning. Who are just even that next, like, scale, or also just, like, using equipment that we've thought about using, or just also general life stuff, like how to, like, raise a family and, like, have a farm at the same time, or
how to get off at a decent hour.
Or, like, have a, you know, team, like, management and all that stuff. But yeah, we go to farm tours. Like, we'll visit a farm everywhere we go. Puerto Rico, this winter was the first time we'd ever, like, gone someplace and not visited a farm.
Yeah.
That's usually, like, the center of what we're doing, is going to, like, see a farm. Yeah.
We got sucked into the beach.
Like, this is what other people do on trips?
Yeah.
So when did it become, like, a business? Like, what I gather is you were doing it, and at some point you made it official. Like, how did that start?
Well, after the first year, like, he was working part-time at a coffee shop, and I was working full-time as a social worker when we started. So after the first year, he quit his job.
So it was a business from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I think we did like $10,000 or $15,000 in sales the first year.
But he's been, so since after the first year, it was like he was full-time year-round since then. It took me a little bit longer. So the first year I quit my full-time job, and then I would substitute teach in the winters to kind of help fill the gap between the seasons. I also started making soap that, like, helped in the winter time. We could still do the farmer's market or have something to, like, sell people. Now, though, you know, there's so much season extension with the greenhouses. Like, we have flowers from March through Thanksgiving, and, like, the stuff that's blooming in March we're planting in November. So it's like there's not really as big of a gap. Each year the gap between seasons gets smaller.
Which is ultimately the goal, so we can keep really good employees around and have consistent work. And even at that point it will enable us to maybe take another vacation because we have a good crew.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's the big picture goal.
But I'd say it took
vacation. If we can just get, like, one vacation a year.
I think it took me, like, 3 or 4 years before I was full-time year-round on the farm. And then we started out slowly with having, like, one employee through the winter. You know, we would have more, like, seasonal help. You know, the first couple employees were just kind of, like, friends paying cash on the table. And then we had posted an internship on ATRA, which is a sustainable farming website. And that's how we found our first, like, real employees. They were a couple that came from Connecticut, but they were both from Ohio, and so they wanted to like work on a farm in Ohio. So they said, like, in order for us to commit to this, we need to be like legit employees.
Yeah.
Like Nate needs to be full time. So like that's when we like made the commitment of like, okay, this is.
Was that scary?
This is what we're gonna do. Yeah.
It was super scary.
Yeah, I mean, because you learn so much about like time management. Like the fact that someone else is gonna show up and be there full time is like, okay, I have to organize like a whole day for somebody
for
else.
A long time in a row.
And if even if you do a bad job of organizing their time, then it gets hard to pay them. Like they become not worth it. If you're a bad manager, they're not worth the money, which is like it's your fault in a sense if they're successful or not sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really lucky that we've had like good people that are into working hard for the most part. I mean, I think that if you want to farm, I mean, we try and be as real with people up front as possible of just like, we've learned that the more we can be like, this is really hard work, like we're out in the rain, sun, you know, dirt, when it's 90 degrees all week, like that's, you know, we're still outside working hard. And it does take some time for like people's bodies to adjust. I mean, even for us in the spring.
This last week was really hard to adjust with the 90 degrees.
And just humid.
But we got the pool filled, so that helped with employee morale. So they can jump in the pool after work.
You guys pulled up today and it was pouring rain, and Adam's like, you can tell them they can stay in their car. I'm like, they're farmers. I'm sure they're like, they're probably out there. But it was really
hail.
intense.
It was really bad.
But my first thought was like, this is probably like normal.
They just walk around
it's funny, like if we get like a new delivery guy or something, he'll be like, oh, you guys picked a good day to be out here. And like, well, we're out here every day.
We chose today of the whole month. That's amazing. So you brought on your first like legit employees. What was it like as far as expansion of service, not even services, but product, or like how have you thought through that? Like, has it been very, an opportunity presents itself and you're like, well, let's just do it? Or was it like more thought out or planned?
Half and half. I mean, we're still like checking out what other growers were doing around the country and what they were successful at, and seeing what we could do here. So that was kind of planned out, but then we kind of just grow it and figure out how to sell it when we had it. So
like there's a farmer who said if you need to make more money, you just plant more, and then once it's blooming, you figure it out. So like that's kind of like how our business has sort of organically grown.
As irresponsible as that sounds, it kind of worked.
Like seeds cheap, so that's But so we would plant more, or we would. All of our crop planning is based on like sales projections and budgeting. So it starts with like how much money do you want to make, and then it like works backwards from there. Like in order to make that much money, you need to have this many bunches. In order to have that many bunches, you need to have cut this. It needs to yield this much. You have that many plants, start that many seeds, like, and work backwards. So sometimes it's like, oh, well, we could probably sell more celosia, so we plant more, and then when it's blooming, that's kind of when we're driving around, like, peddling our product and picking up new sales outlets.
But I don't feel like we're really solid planners. However, I feel like if anyone was to look at us, they would think that we're pretty solid planners. You know, we plan a lot, but we're not necessarily like crunching numbers, except for when we're crop planning and trying to do sales projections. Other than that, like, you know, I'm looking at making some big investments back into the business this year with greenhouses and a tractor. And I'm not necessarily seeing how that tractor can pay for itself in the next 4 years.
You know, it's
also just your gut. Like we know that we could sell more, or we know that like this tractor will like
increase efficiencies.
Increase efficiencies. Like
that's funny.
And that like intuition or gut, I think, is so tied to you're doing it every day. It'd be different if you were the type of business owners who are making other people do it, and then making calls where your employees are like, that's not actually what people want. And I think the same goes for us, where I know like this equipment's going to pay off really quickly because if this then that, but if I wasn't really in it, I think I could be making those calls poorly.
Well, we've had business coaches come in at various stages and work with us on different things, and a lot of times they'll have like the right advice like a year early, like a year before we're even close to getting to that point. And I think that's so much of I mean, there's so much truth to that. Like, that's a really good point. We should definitely do that.
Just not now.
Next year.
Yeah.
Like in 2 years from now.
But when it is that time, then it really connects, too. It still resonates with you.
Like, I think when we're also, like, thinking about trying to do something, or, like, we have enough, like, mentors or, like, other grower friends or just, like, people that we, like, you know, believe in their business acumen or whatever, that we can, you know, he could call another farmer and say, hey, this is the equipment I was thinking about investing in. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you do? You know, just to get some other type of, like, input.
I'm really good at putting myself out there, I feel like, and, like, asking questions and being vulnerable. I feel like that's kind of how I was in school. It's kind of just developed into this. So I'll contact people in Connecticut, other states that are big vegetable growers, be like, hey, email them, like, if you got time to talk about this, that'd be great. And since she writes for the magazine, people know who we are, so I think they're more willing. And and then we're not necessarily a competitive farm in that aspect. So,
but even like when we went out to Portland, we visited flower farms, and that was the first time that we like none of them we actually knew personally, but we just like kind of knew of them through like the Flower Growers Association, and just. You know, we're like, well, we might as well ask if we can come and like see the farm or if they'll talk to us or whatever. So like a lot of the like things that we've learned or like people that we've kind of accumulated like in our lives have just been like, okay, well, we're just gonna like do it. Like we're just gonna ask, or we're just gonna go to the farm and like see what they say.
But I think there's a passion that we have that they see too, and then it just becomes like this like magical like like conversation.
You guys aren't in it for the money. Like, I mean,
no,
money's
it's the lifestyle.
fantastic. Yeah, right.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that's always impressed me about both of you is that you do so much of that. You're so connected to a community that I didn't know there was a flower grower association, or, you know, you just don't know that world exists until you hear about it. How there's ways, what are some ways that you have benefited from that world or those networks? Commonly our advice to people is don't spend too much time like networking with your competitors or other people who are doing what you're doing. Pay attention to your customers. But for you guys, it's been a little different, where you spend a lot of time talking to competitors or paying attention.
I mean, we say that we kind of are a product of the ASCFG, like just because that's where we like gained the ASCFG, the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers.
Gotcha.
But everybody,
like pretty cool.
7 or 8 people in that, or like 7,000, or
like
there's like thousands at this point.
It's doubled in the last 2 years.
Yeah, like the flower farming has like blown up.
Really?
So like they've had a record new members for the past like couple years. I mean, we like talk about them a lot, and I think that there's just a lot more people trying to like grow stuff, and they're a great like resource. And you know, sometimes like we are like, oh, well, should we like say that because it is like our competition that's listening, but also like nobody's gonna be able to replicate exactly what we're doing. Nobody's sales outlets are the same, like. And also we say that we're kind of like a two-headed monster. Like the fact that both of us are, sorry, I stole it. But the fact that like both of
Steve
us are involved. Steve says that, means that like, you know, I can do the office work and focus on like wedding design. And we were actually just trying to narrow it down. Like, what are the 3 things that you contribute most to the business? And like I'm kind of like the post-harvest to like sales and like design and stuff, so I can translate what's coming out of the field into like what's available to florists or grocery stores or whatever. And he's kind of the beginning of the process where he's prepping all the fields, getting all the stuff planted, like keeping it weeded and watered and stuff like that.
And you're saying some people don't have, they'd have to do
it's
all
just
of
like,
it themselves.
one of the two of the couple. And I would say like with as far as the competition goes, it's such a regional thing, you know, like it's hard. No one's going to be my competition in Pittsburgh or something like that because it's unless they're shipping, and then there's so many people that buy. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the floral industry, and I feel like I feel like we've learned a lot from what other people are doing, and we're kind of also training our customers too, because they're so used to getting flowers from South America.
Yeah.
They're not used to having local flowers. So a lot of the stuff that we have provided for them, they don't necessarily haven't seen before. Now that we've been around for a while, we have our customers that expect a certain thing. Yeah.
Why does it matter that my flowers are from South America or wherever?
Well, local flowers you're supporting your local economy, but also, like, they're fresher, they last longer, and, we grow, like, sustainably. I mean, we're not certified organic, but we farm organically pretty much.
Right.
Just like...
but you don't have the label?
Yeah, we just don't have the label. But yeah, so that means, like, there are workers' rights and there's...
spray regulations that the U.S. has that South America doesn't have. Every plant product that's brought in from out of country into the U.S. is fumigated because we don't want to bring any of their bugs or anything in there. So there's poisons that we add to the flowers by we, the government, and then there's the poisons that the growers out there add because they don't have the regulations. And so at that point, you're just trying to keep bugs off your crop so you can make money.
So for us, that's like if your kid wants to handle the flowers or your cat eats the flowers or whatever, like it's not, they're not like toxic. But also just vase life, like we cut today what gets delivered to the store tomorrow and it goes directly on the sales floor. So like as opposed to something that comes from South America, gets put in a box, gets shipped to Miami, then gets shipped to Columbus, and then it's just a longer...
Well, I've noticed that, we noticed that as soon as you guys would bring flowers over.
They smell so much better.
Well, they last forever. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, this is worth it.
Well, and it's such a manipulative industry too, because they're forcing us to like mums and these roses that they bred that last a long time but don't smell good, and but they don't get diseases. So all these different things that they've bred that we like last a long time. Like the mums last a long time when they're shipped in, but that's why they ship them in. That's why it's such a popular flower.
Got it. Interesting.
So they're like driving the demand based on whatever they're growing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, like, I guess to get deep, in the 90s, the government subsidized the cocoa farms to become flower farms and decreased the tariffs for things being imported. So they kind of created their own, there are no tariffs when the stuff's coming from, like, places in South America. I want to say Ecuador and Colombia, but I don't know that for sure as a fact. But, of exact places. But yeah, so those things like all created more competition for the domestic like flower market. So historically a lot of florists would grow some of their own flowers. They had a greenhouse off the back and they would produce some of their own stuff. Well, that kind of died off when like the flower farms increased in South America because it became more of like a global market and it kind of killed the domestic like flower market. So I think part of the reason why flower farmers are also so like open about stuff is that we're all kind of fighting the same fight of like just getting people aware of like what it means when your flowers aren't local, where they come from, and just like we're all kind of in it together of like trying to recreate and build back up the like domestic flower market.
Demand,
That's really cool.
I have a question. Can I ask it? So you mentioned I'm not in it for the money, it's for the lifestyle. Can you talk a little bit about like what that looks like for you too? And like were there conversations had or was it more of like obvious? Like obviously you are profitable and you pay people, money is important, but what does that lifestyle look like?
I mean, like there are just decisions that we've made that kind of like fall into that. Like we had a girl come back to us that had worked for us a few years and we hadn't really like planned on her being there, but we were like, it's worth it for us to hire her even if it comes off of our net, like because we're gonna get that like money back by like investing into like having her on the team. So just kind of making some of those decisions. Like when we built the barn, we were like, this is what we wanted to do. We didn't build the barn until year 7 or 8 of like us having the farm, and so we were like, we might as well just ask if we can, like, get the financing. And when they were like, yeah, you can, but you need to make this, like, $6,000 down payment or whatever, we were like, okay, well, that's, that's something that, like, if it comes off of the net at the end of the year of what we're actually going to bring home, but we have this, like, amazing barn that we've been waiting 7 years for.
For sure.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that, we say that, like, the business always wins, you know, when it's like, oh, add on to the house or, like, add an office onto the barn, like, the barn, add an office onto the barn. Like, it's all just, like, quality of life investments, kind of.
And as a lifestyle, like, I mean, we live there, we work there, so it's, we're always trying to improve things just to make things a little easier on our bodies while we're there. And, I mean, how would you explain our lifestyle?
But also just, like, the plant nerd, like, within us is what always, like, drives us to continue to change what we're growing. Like, again, going back to, like, the experimentation, like, we're always, like, trying new things to see if we can grow this, like, as a cut flower, because the designer in me wants to keep it interesting, but also just, like,
and it's a very nurturing
to,
environment.
Like, repertoire. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we are, like, a farm family, for sure. This year, we've got 5 people living on the farm, which is the most we've ever had.
Living on the farm? Mm-hmm. Like in your house?
No,
okay.
in campers.
So your farm is by your house, right?
Yeah.
And so you have...
The house is on the farm.
You've had problems before where customers show up and just, like, knock on your door, right?
Yeah, I mean, people are getting the point
Yeah.
now because, like, there's a sign with hours for the most part, but I mean, people still show up when we're not really open. But we just, like, redid the farm stand at the farm, and
I saw that.
Are making, like, a map that, like, is like what you would see at a park that says, like, this is where you can go and this is where you can't go, and like this is private property and you are here and these crops are there. So hopefully that'll help too, so that people will get the point. But it's also set up to be self-serve, so
it's going well. I mean, people aren't, like, driving by and stopping. People are coming out with the intention of stopping.
Gotcha.
So they've given. I feel like we haven't had as many weird questions.
Yeah. Seems like people are getting it. We're starting to find our people as far as, like, the farm stand goes.
Cool.
But and going back to the money thing too. Also, I think that we've kind of decided that we know how much we need to make. And obviously we want to bump that up a little bit. But we know how much money we need to make to get by. And I think everything outside of that is just improving the way how everything feels around the farm.
Day to day.
And so we don't really need to make a lot of money.
Yeah, so we, like, invest that back into the business.
Yeah.
Like, buying the tractor or buying that piece of equipment that's going to, like, make his field work go faster, which means he's not, like, over at the other farm tilling until dark. If there's something that we can get that, like, makes it go faster, which means he's done sooner, then, like, we're willing to do that.
I remember when we first got this studio that we're sitting in right now. For the podcast audience, we're sitting in the studio. I remember we got in and I thought, okay, so we'll just work in here. It was, like, dumpy. We'll just, like, work in here for a while. And I remember Allie being like, I know we have keys to it, but, like, it's gross. I don't want to go over there anymore. Like, because it's gross and I'd rather work at home. And so I was like, we have to, like, make this place a little nicer so that it's at least we don't hate our lives while we're in here.
Yeah.
And then at one point her office was in that closet behind you, which has no light. And after, like, a month of that, she was like, I don't like working in here because there's no sunlight and this just isn't, I don't like doing this. And it was so much of that, because so much of our work is, whatever kind of, quote, work-life balance we have, it's more of integration than it is balance. And so a lot of those improvements come just out of making your life more enjoyable if you have something you like at work, which is
this is what I'm doing all day.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, that comes with, there was one point where my iMac was so slow that I was probably spending, like, an extra 15 hours a week working.
Right.
Like, that's not worth it, and there's those moments where you could do the math and realize, like, this is worth it, or just, like, I'm going to go with my gut and say that this
Allie's been wanting to get like a full built out kitchen in the back warehouse area, and we sat down with a financial coach and we were going through our planning, and he was like, "Oh, it makes a ton of sense for you to do that," which is it's probably the biggest single investment we'll have made into the studio.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, it makes a ton of math sense that you do that." She was like,
Yeah.
It's like you got permission. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like that big purchase that a smart person said, "Oh, it's worth it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it. I just couldn't prove it until he did.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And I feel like those kind of become bigger decisions too. I mean, as you progress.
Yeah, definitely. That's
whether you go
something
decide to
that,
do it or don't decide to do it.
like when we built the barn, we were like, this is the biggest. You know, like before we may have bought a $2,500 tractor, or I mean,
$10,000 tractor.
we bought a $10,000 tractor in the beginning, but still the barn was like, you know, $50,000 or something to like build a barn, and it was just like I thought at some point like the decisions would like get easier, but it's almost like the risks get bigger, and so it doesn't
equals itself out.
And with more of team, you start to have more people relying on you to make the right decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just about us anymore.
So many times Adam will be like, "Why haven't we bought that thing?" I'm like, "Cash flow, just trying to be careful." You know, like once we know it's like the perfect timing, let's do it. But
it's been the most annoying thing with my coffee business to have like all my next investments are
big
like
investments.
$5,000 or $10,000 equipment things, and it's so annoying all the time to. In the math with the coffee business by itself, it makes a ton of sense to do it. Like you should definitely do that next. But then if I look at would I invested there or at the Wonder Jam, a lot of the times I would invest at the Wonder Jam, or I would put it into the people here.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, coffee business is gonna like chill out for a little bit.
Yeah,
totally.
But keep going. So don't. Coffee's still for sale. Don't listen to this and think it's not.
I mean it's definitely not just about us anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of like making, for us being a seasonal business, you know, making that commitment to like having more people year round means even more like attention to cash flow, because we're not really bringing in money like from the Christmas wreath sales and, you know, kind of beginning middle of December, and then flowers don't bloom again until March. So like we're not selling any flowers. We started selling dahlia tubers online, which is like a flower bulb, and that's something we can post in December, and like the sales happen in the winter, and that was something that really has like helped with cash flow, being able to pay employees through the winter.
But it was tough too.
Yeah.
It was tough work to divide them on, and that's a lot of customers that we're dealing with now. You know, with orders and paying PayPal and stuff.
We shipped out like over 500 like orders, which is a lot of processing.
in 3 months or in 2 months.
Well, we take the orders December through March, and then we ship out the first 2 weeks of April.
Okay, but that's also when other things are starting.
Yeah.
So it's not like you did. That's totally. It's stupid, except for I understand
where
you're like,
same thing,
oh, revenue's awesome. I remember there was times, we're better at planning now, but I remember there would be times where we would be like, we should plan a workshop this weekend because we're in between projects and we need the revenue, whatever. Luckily we don't have to do that anymore, but there's times where you're like, what can we start?
Just need a little bit more cash.
And that's, I mean, so it's really important for us in the summer when, you know, most of our money is made July, August, September. Yeah.
And by the middle of August, you start feeling like you're doing really good, you know?
Yeah, so like that's
like
where the bookkeeper comes in, is to be like, okay, but we still need to like make these payments and like, you know, maybe we should put some into savings and
for sure.
Yeah, so it's good now having someone in the office, so that way I'm not really seeing like the money coming in, because it's hard not to like spend it when you feel like you're doing really well. But just knowing that like that's it, you have to in order to make it through the winter.
For sure.
This year we had 5 people through the winter, and right now we have 17 employees. So it's a lot of people.
Dang.
So
you guys have grown a lot since in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
A lot. What's been the thing that you, other than just the industry growing and you guys getting your brand out there and people trust you and you've done a good job and all that, just organically growing, has there been anything that's changed intentionally that's gone from wherever you were?
Yeah.
2 years ago, how many employees did you have?
Probably like 12. I think we went from 12 to 15 to now 17.
Okay.
I think is where we're at. So, yeah, I mean, we did a presentation this winter about like scaling up the farm, and we were able to like track in our growth. So our growth like grew at the same rate that our like payroll has. So I think that's like, that shows even this year so far compared to last year, like our growth has grown at the same rate payroll has. So I think that it's like shows that like you need more people in order to like make money, but also that those people are worth it because your like income is growing at the same rate. But we were able to kind of plot like a few different things on the like scale of growth. So, you know, we were just our like home plot, but then we got access to land that's kind of adjacent to our property that added some 2 more acres onto production.
Okay.
And that was the first like kind of big jump in that like scale up. And then the next big jump was growing vegetables. So we used to do a little bit of everything. Like I said, our idea was to live off of the land. So we had pigs and ducks and chickens, and we grew vegetables, and we had a CSA where people got like weekly produce, and we were doing flowers. So like once we decided to focus on the flowers, that was what like really was the biggest like jump.
Interesting.
Which was really scary to like let go of, you know, we wanted to be involved. Local food was like the awareness was really building up at that point, and it was really cool to go into a restaurant and be like, those are my tomatoes. But so it was really hard for us to like let go of that, but we now like looking back are able to see like it was definitely, you know, the right decision because of that like jump.
Like the focus.
So even in enterprises where we've streamlined, we've seen an increase too, where we decided to knock out a sales outlet or raise our minimum so that we're only dealing with people that can buy so much as far as the grocery stores go.
So but 2 years ago, though, we just... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. 2 years ago, we just got access to another plot of land that added like 8 acres on production. So we really expanded the like volume of what we were doing and started shipping flowers.
So you have... Gosh, there's so many things. Do you think that growing revenue followed people, or did people follow revenue?
That's a good question. I would say that you're always behind when you're farming, right? Like you're never caught up. We have a farmer friend that's like, I figured I'm like 10 years behind at this point. So maybe that just is how it is with all business owners, where like you can create a forever long to-do list. But I think that they've kind of grown together. Like even like we have to hire people on in like April, May when we're shipping out those dahlia tubers, and then May, Mother's Day is our biggest like floral holiday that we can hit. But usually in June, like the past like couple weeks, we feel a little overstaffed, but we've learned how to like utilize that to just like knock out some big projects like during that amount of time.
And clean up the farm.
Up the farm, because we do need all those people in July once all the like flowers start blooming, and it's nice that they're like trained at that point.
So yeah, I mean at the beginning of the year we do our sales projections, and then we buy thousands of dollars worth of seeds and hire on 17 employees and hope that everything goes well. You know what I mean? It is somewhat of a it's a complete gamble if those seeds don't germinate, or if we get flooded, or we have a drought.
Like this is the first rain last night was the first rain we've gotten in like 2 weeks, maybe
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, so like it was really dry. You know, so
and that just adds extra labor because we're watering. You know, so but it is a gamble. So we never know exactly how much we're going to sell and how much crew we're going to need. There's really not a way for us to like...
It's just been trying to figure it out.
Well, the great thing is the first 2 years or the first year or whatever, you don't have to know at that scale yet. Like you start where you're at and you grow years and years and years in the future, and then you then you have to make those decisions of like based on trends or based on the last few years.
Yeah.
The decisions that we're making day to day now, we weren't making those decisions when we first started. You know?
Oh, I think there's so many. I think when I'm doing coaching with people, especially those who have, they're a very small business, so they're leaving a full-time job trying to do their own thing or have a 1 or 2 person business. They compare themselves to larger companies, and you never know the behind-the-scenes story of some other company or some other farmer, and somebody might start off with a ton of cash from an uncle who helped invest in something, or some other business planning expert who did whatever and put the spreadsheet together and then started farming, or then started doing whatever. And we've worked with businesses on both sides of it, where
everyone's origin stories.
Maybe people have maybe people are less directly connected with the business, but they have a great plan and they have financing to say, we're going to make sure all this is straight, and then we're going to do the business. And then other people who are like, I'm just going to start selling a flower to a random person, and then see if we can sell 2 tomorrow, and then see if we can, kind of start there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we were really fortunate that we started with land, because for a lot of young farmers, especially like, if you've got school loans and stuff, like a lot of young farmers can't afford to like buy land and start a business.
Yeah.
So, I kind of feel like maybe my dad knew.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So we were really lucky that we started with land, and also Columbus is like a hot spot for grocery stores. So like that being our main sales outlet, like making the bouquets and bunches that go to grocery stores may not work in some place that's very rural where you only have one grocery store.
Yeah. True.
Like we did a talk at a West Virginia conference, and they were like, we have one Kroger and it's an hour away.
Yeah.
Like,
so
the fact that we have 11 stores here in town that we sell to, and then we sell to 2 distribution centers, one in Akron and one in Cleveland, that have multiple stores that they distribute to. So, like, the fact that that's all happening around us is kind of what makes it possible. And that's another reason why I feel like we don't have to worry as much about, like, giving information to your competition, is because, like, nobody has exactly the same sales outlets or opportunities or
I've also been impressed by a lot of people who are working part-time at a coffee shop and starting their own farm, cannot treat it as a business the way that both of you have. I think you guys bring, or you seem like you do anyways, but like you bring a lot of almost professional, you guys are always trying to improve it, you guys are always paying attention to numbers. Something that I just see a lot. I grew up in a farming world, and I didn't watch a lot of people pay a lot of attention that way, talk about those things. That wasn't kind of what it was all about. Where did that come from? Or when did is that something that you started caring about, or you...
Well, I think that we realized that in order for us to, like, be full-time on the farm, that, like, we had to make it a business, It wasn't just, like, homesteading and living off of the land. Like, we had to, like, do it for real. So there's a book called The Organic Farmer's Business Handbook, and the author talks a lot about, like, watching inputs and outputs and doing enterprise budgets, and so really, like, implementing the, like, crop planning and thinking about some of that stuff in the business handbook were, like, what kind of drove us to, like, think about those things. And Nate, the guy that came to us, our first, like, real employee, came to us from another farm in Connecticut, and brought with him the things that he learned at that farm, which they were an intern and had, like, a full, like, syllabus and, stuff that they learned. And so kind of thinking about systems, like, it all came from that. Do you have anything to add?
I have no idea kind of where it came from, but then as I start thinking back, I'm like, it kind of makes sense. Like, I wasn't that good in school, and so, now I was working at a coffee shop. So, and when I was 18, I started a house cleaning business. Yeah. Where me and my girlfriend at the time had, like, 4 accounts, and we cleaned houses weekly. And that worked out okay, and then we broke up. I wasn't going to clean houses anymore. And then I almost opened up a coffee shop with some people. So I think I always... when I started farming, I felt like this was my one chance to like be successful and do something.
Yeah.
And so, but my family wasn't like business minded. They weren't talking that way. So I there was a rapper that I was friends with in Columbus, a Christian rapper. And I think I went on tour with him a little bit, and I think I learned a lot from him. Selling merch and just like, I'm inspired actually by rappers a lot too, and just the way they run business, in ways.
Yeah.
And so I grew up like paying attention to it in that aspect. So I guess it kind of came from my love for rap.
This has been a recurring theme, so let's get into that.
We talked about rappers earlier.
With another
interview,
another episode that we had. Will this one be first? Which of them will be first?
I don't know yet.
So either in a past episode we talked
or a future
episode.
we start the whole thing off by like, what's your favorite hip hopper?
With Jerry at Cherbourg Bakery.
Yeah. Okay.
So we talked about our favorite rappers. So let's do that
or
now.
You said hip hop or R&B.
Or R&B or rap or whatever. Let's
do
this now.
Q-Tip.
Q-Tip?
Yeah.
For real?
By far.
Dude. That's good.
Do you have one?
Oh, Missy Elliott.
That's good.
Oh, that's so good.
What are you guys'? What's your
Well,
answer?
I feel like I need to give a different one.
Well, you're allowed to have the same. You're allowed to be a consistent person.
I said that it's not a rapper, but I said based on the amount of years I was a fan, I need to give props to Usher because I was really into Usher, like as a kid. He's still around, which is like, he looks great. We've already talked about this.
You've always thought he looks great.
Well, when I was younger, I thought he looked way greater. Now I'm just like, are you aging? This is bizarre.
You had a little poster of him in your
on the back of my door.
What about you?
Kanye West is like my...
Yeah.
But you love Eminem.
I love... Yeah, that's a whole thing too.
I know. I think Eminem is just harder to...
But Jay-Z's even a little like... He can't do wrong.
Yeah.
I think that the Jay-Z Beyonce like combo is just like power couple. So like as a couple that like works together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we liked like House of Cards in the beginning, because we were like, even though they're crazy, they like nail it. You know, like they're like in it for each other, even though it's like
or the business
madness. Yeah, which is, I mean, theirs is not like a healthy thing, but it's still...
Have you watched the new season?
No.
Okay, neither have I.
Okay.
Oh, you need to.
I know, I need to schedule like a day where I
just watch it all.
Just do that.
I've only seen the first season. I didn't watch the second.
But yeah, I think also part of like what kind of drove us to like to be determined to like make it is like the naysayers, you know, like people saying like there's no way that like both of you could work on a farm full time and like make a living, or like,
or even other
you
growers.
like to farm, like you didn't even like to mow the lawn, like why that?
Would you do this?
You know, like our our family, like everyone thought we were crazy in the beginning, and now they're like, okay, like they get it. They still may not fully understand.
They still think we're crazy.
They still think we're crazy, but it's still is like now they see that like this is like what we're passionate about, and like we're serious about this, you know.
We had, when we started working together full time, we had people send us job openings, and I remember that still is motivating, even if it's over, and people those same people like overwhelmingly support and are proud of, and they're like, you guys do such cool stuff. But this thing at the beginning where you're like, I thought this was good. I thought this was good for a while. And it's cool that you now support it, but...
And I think it's cool now for, like, you know, now that we've had employees and, like, some people have left to kind of, like, start their own farm, or we're writing articles for, like, Growing for Market, which they don't, like, you know, our family and stuff doesn't read. But it's also still, like, just the fact that, like, now we're at a level where, like, we know enough that we're, like, teaching other people, I think is cool for other people to see of, like, oh, well, you, like, we're also growing farmers at this point, you know, because it's, like, people who, we always say, like, you're going to, when you work for us, you're going to figure out whether or not you want to farm, because, like, this is, you know, we're not just, like, picking daisies in a white dress with a little basket, like, frolicking through the fields, like, it's really hard work, so, like, the reality of that is, like, kind of what people... You learn a lot about yourself when you like, work for us, which is something that we've realized. Is, like, you know, we're going to continue to get older, but our employees are probably going to stay around the same age, like, you know, in their mid-young 20s or whatever. And part of what we're doing on the farm is, like, helping them grow up, or like learning how to work, or, you know, just learning about themselves, not being afraid to do something that's not the norm. You know, I think that was one of the things that was like really hard for me, was that my degree was in psychology and I was a farmer. So like now I can definitely see how it like came into use. Now that we have employees and, you know, I'm working with brides and marketing and like HR and all of that kind of stuff. It definitely comes into play. But
at the beginning you feel a little bit like
like I just paid for this like education and now I'm going to be a farmer. So
and you used it for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So but you continue.
Yeah, now I use it all the time.
I think it was one of the things that Allie and I also benefited from was that we didn't, before we started the Wonder Jam, we didn't have jobs that we made a lot of money. And I'm assuming you were making a crap ton of money in social work.
I hear those people make bank.
She's like, I was addicted to that social work money.
No, we weren't making a lot. So like the transition, because we were young and poor, it's like very easy. I mean, it's hard work, but you're not like going from like 6-figure salary to like.
It wasn't like we have this crazy car payment that we had to figure out how to work into like a freelancer life.
Yeah, but that also meant that like you didn't necessarily have a bunch of cash in the savings.
No,
like you had to make it work. That's something that like other farmers have said to us, is like, you know, what I like about you guys is that like your life was on the line. Like there wasn't an option. Like you had to make it work. And that's kind of like, that's kind of something else that I think like drove us, of just like this is what we're gonna do.
And it's different when you're like both doing it. Like there's so many times where we talk to other people and they're in a situation where like their business, owning a business it's important, but they also have the support of their spouse who has a full-time job. And I think there's been so many times where Adam and I are like, if this fails, like we both have to find jobs. Like we both have like things to figure out.
Or
so
you have to find a good job.
Yeah, I have to find a job. We both have to find some job. But definitely, I think the biggest thing to give up, I asked about the lifestyle versus money thing, because the hardest part for me, even if we make good money now, would be the lifestyle. Would be like, I dictate what my days look like here. Not always, but it's my decision.
Yeah. And it's
easy to feel like you don't have a choice in it. Like, I have to go do this, but you still set the whole thing up. So
Yeah, and I think there's some people who make really bad choices when they're in charge of their own time, and it's not a good, you know, they're not ready for that. Owning your business is a good way to get there, but
but the more employees you have, the more like planning there is for sure. I mean, that's what I like. Don't really see myself as like an organized person. Like I'm never gonna like, I don't know, put things away in shelves that are like labeled and stuff. Like that's not, I don't enjoy like reorganizing the house and stuff. But like when I took a personality test, it said that one of my leadership styles was an arranger. And I was like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense, because that's like, that is what I'm doing all day. Like I'm orchestrating people and like time management and stuff. Like figuring out, okay, you're almost done with this. Well, we're going to move on to that now. And like setting that up and helping transition like people. When you have that many people and a farm is so focused on efficiencies, like, you know, if you have 10 people standing there for 5 minutes, that's almost an hour of like time that you're paying. So like setting them up to transition to the next like job and really like orchestrating what the tasks are going to be is really a big part of like of my day. I mean, we spend a lot of time planning for sure
for other people.
I still remember I worked at a restaurant at one point, and then like a regional manager came through to talk to the whole team, and I remember he talked about giving people, like they had a policy change of giving people 3 napkins instead of 4 when someone asked for like napkins. Like, give them 3, don't take them 4, which is stupid.
Because that adds up.
It's stupid. And I was like, oh, you know, he's like, yeah, we have like 1,200 locations, and so it's like $1 billion a year in napkins because you're trying to get a bigger tip, you know, and that's like cool, but
3's good.
3's great. And we, you know, I was also in college at the time, so I was like, I don't want to give them however many napkins I feel like still requires. But there's just a different level of planning, responsibility, and taking care of everybody. You guys do some things to take care of yourselves as far as when you're in those slower months. you take days off?
Yeah. So we'll take like Thursdays. This year was our day off.
So what do you do on those days? What do you do?
What are those days look like?
Thirsty Thursday, where you just slide into the weekend?
Sometimes, yeah, like, or we'll go out to lunch. Sometimes we're still working. It's just like you're working at your own pace, so you're not responsible for anybody else because there's no employees there. So that might be the time to like be able to focus on one of our own like. And
then we'll go out to lunch or get a coffee and then come back to it.
Yeah, or this year we've been
so it doesn't sound like taking Thursdays off, really.
Well, it's just a change of pace, right?
Yeah.
That's like the same thing that we say, like, yeah, we're done at 5. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're like totally done at 5. That means like the employees are gone, which like means that we can do something at our own pace if we still have something to do, or if I wanted to like research something and I didn't have time to do it during the day, then that's something like that we can do like in the evening. But,
and this is still like January, so you know, come January, a lot of people want to sit inside.
Or like read for part of the day. Or we were going to like a float spa and doing that like sensory deprivation tanks, or like I'll go to yoga class. Or
you guys are into that. You were always posting Instagram photos from the tanks, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you love it?
Have you ever done it?
No. My brother has.
I like it.
I like it.
What do you get from it? Besides like a bath?
Well, it's...
You're like, that's actually where I just bathe.
No, it's, I mean, the idea is for you to be in a meditative state. So, like, for me, it's more about, like, I'm not going to just sit in my house and meditate for an hour.
Right, yeah.
But going someplace, almost like, you know, going to a yoga class, like, you're going to push yourself harder and you're going to, like... You're going to do better by, like, being at a yoga class because you go there and you do 90 minutes or whatever. So it's kind of the same idea where, like, you're in a place where there are no distractions. Like, your dog's not there. Like, you know, you're not connected to anything.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes it...
Balances you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not as good at it, I feel like, but Steve says... that like nobody's good at meditation, or it just takes a lot of practice. I just feel like your brain doesn't totally like shut off. It just like allows you to calm down a little bit.
Allie and I both were way different at how we handle that stuff.
Downtime or meditation?
Yeah. When we like screw around with it or try stuff.
I haven't found it the way that I would want it to be.
Yeah. But different things are so calming and relaxing and soothing to you that are not to me.
Yeah.
That's why I like yoga, because I feel like then I like kind of earned it. It's easier for me to like shavasana at the end of yoga when I've like felt like I got to work out.
Yeah,
instead
or
of just,
that
like,
you were sort of focused on something but not really like analyzing or anything.
Or not any of the other distractions that you have going on.
I mean, because I've done like guided meditations where you really want to avoid zoning out, and I have a hard time balancing the like zoned in and zoned out. I weirdly get really calm by loud like restaurants. I actually want to fall asleep in loud restaurants because it's like becomes white noise to me, and I always think to myself, maybe this is just like where I have to meditate, like a really loud dark restaurant. I can just like be zoned out.
First 2 years, what are some things you're like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing I'm gonna have to tackle?
Well, I mean, we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, so like kind of everything was surprising challenges, like, but also just how hard the work was and like how much time it was actually going to take. Like, we both like to like work hard and we're enjoying what we were doing, but we didn't know like going into it we'd be harvesting with headlamps on, like, in order to like get everything done in time to go to the farmer's market or whatever. Like, just like the level of commitment. I feel like, you know, the farm really kind of forced us to make the decision of like, is this what you want to do or not? Because you can't like half-ass it. Like you're gonna have to like give it 110% like all the time in order to like get this thing going.
And if you show up to a market with half the amount of flowers you want, then you make half the amount.
Right. Were you guys married at that? When did you?
We were not. So we started the farm in 2007 and we got married in 2008. So I told him, we got engaged in 2006, and I told him I'm not starting a farm and like planning a wedding at the same time. So we started the farm, and then we like had a wedding. But
and we know how Steve's last venture with his girlfriend. So, right? We were like, we'll figure that out. We'll see how it goes. That's what I would think.
Well, I was going to ask too, like, because I think with planning a wedding or we've had a lot of guests who are like, and then I got pregnant, and you know, so there's all these different like personal life things that happen that people don't anticipate. Adam has coaching with so many women who are pregnant or going to have a child, and he's like, you're going to be like tired, and they're like, I think I'll be fine. He's like, I've never experienced this, but I've heard that you're going to be tired, you know. And so a lot of those like personal life things come up, and it takes time, you know?
I think that if we would have gotten pregnant, it would have been the best decision, like the best thing, because then we would have had to build the business around the baby. Now it's like, we still don't even know if we're going to have kids or not, you know, because
in the beginning, the business was our child, and now like the business is a little bit more established. We're like,
it can feed it. It's like
we kind of farm kids though, you know. Like this winter, like during the holidays, like there were like 3 or 4 people that were like, can we stop by the farm like while we're in town? And we're like, wow, it's like our kids are coming home. That's awesome. So it was pretty cool. But so I think that. The farm, like, really also helped prove, at least for myself, like, really prove how strong I really am. Like, those days when it's really tough and you're, like, really tired and you just have to, like, finish what you're doing and there's, you know, you can't, like, opt out, is, like, that's just, like, when you make it through that, it really proves to yourself what you are capable of. And, like, that, the willpower that... And I think that that's something that's, like, being learned by our employees, too, is that, like, because they're like, you guys just work so hard. Like, how do you even work so hard? And it's like, well, also when you do what you love, that passion, like, feeds how hard you can work. But also, just building on that of learning a lot about yourself. I mean, and also now that we have so many employees, learning a lot about being a boss and learning about yourself like all over again. And we've been together since I was 19 and I'm about to turn 32, so like we've grown up together, and as you grow, like, you know, things change and the relationship grows and the business grows, and so it's just like we have not like reached a point where we feel like, you know, this is what it's going to be like. So that's, people
we're getting
always
closer to it.
But people always ask us, like, well, how do you know, like, you know, how do you know when to stop, or how do you know, like, how big is too big? And I just feel like there's not really, you can't really tell someone that answer. Like, it's all based on what you have going on in your life, like how hard you want to work, like how much money you want to make. Like, there's not really how many employees do you want to have, like at this point, we've decided, like, this is the number of employees. Like, I'm not trying to, like, manage any more people just because there's only so many hours in the day to, like, orchestrate, like, what's happening. And I'm sure that we'll get better at it, too, like, having that many people. But
I always find this to be the problem with all entrepreneurial creative people, is that you build you guys do a farm, but you get like a playground that's a certain size and it's way too big for you, and then you get comfortable in it, and then your creative entrepreneurial brain gets bored, and then you make a bigger thing that you don't know how to handle, and then you spend all of your time stressing out about figuring out how to handle this thing that you just made. It is just, you know, our business has grown a ton. Your business is, you know, whatever, 10 times bigger than it was 5 years ago, and now you're like, all right, we can, like, kind of coast, and then you're going to get kind of bored. In, like, 5 minutes, you're going to be like, all right, so we should start, like, 10 farms. Or, you know, whatever the next thing is.
Definitely.
You're gonna
and that, I mean, that's something, that we talk about is, like, it would get boring if we weren't. I mean, that's why we are always, like, trying out new crops or, like, trying out new systems of, figuring out. His brain, like, thinks in systems, so, like, he'll wake up in the morning and be like, you know, I was thinking we could do it like this. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just woke up. But
it's been a long time since I've done that.
He's learned that I'm not a morning person. Even though we've been farming for 10 years, I'm still not a morning person.
Put a little notebook and then coffee, I'll tell him.
But so, like, we're always, and And now we have more people, like we tell our employees, you know, like we're open to like hearing other people's ideas, like if they, you know, have things that they think could be better, or like efficiencies that they see, or systems that like may need help, like so that it's not just like our brains thinking about it, but it's also like other people too, which I think also helps them like be more engaged in what's going on.
I think that's why I like farming so much too, is because it's so seasonal. So I get bored with things as well. So like I can put all my energy into one or two things in the spring, and then a couple things in the summer, and make sure I really nail those things. And then in the fall, I can kind of start scaling my energy back and putting it into building the business again. So the next spring, it's all right back into the same thing. So I like the different pace change through the season.
Yeah, and I mean, farming will definitely keep you humble, because it's like as soon as you think you have everything figured out, there's something else. Like this year we had thrips, which are like a pest that we've never had like this in the field, where it's just like we were just throwing out like buckets and buckets of flowers that were so in the trash. Yeah, so it was just like, yeah, we were like coasting along, like having a great spring, and then just had a couple weeks where we had like significant crop failures. And so it's like, it's definitely humbling that.
But even the crew felt it too, you know, there was definitely this energy of like,
oh man.
Like,
Did all that work.
Yeah, I mean, they harvested all those flowers that we threw away, so it was tough. But there's always things to learn, and I think that that's something that we enjoy. We always say every spring that like we learn so much, because in the winter is when we're like doing the farm tours and reading and researching and brainstorming or whatever. So the spring is like when everything gets put into use that you've been thinking about, dreaming about. It's.
And the nice thing about
like
our industry too, or just farming in general, is we're learning from how people were doing it in the 40s and the 50s before like chemical herbicides and pesticides became popular. So there's all kinds of literature out there from back then about certain techniques of doing things that just kind of went out the window 70s, 80s, and 90s. So it's fun to go back and read some of those old books.
That's really cool, It's like going back to, like, anytime we take it back and are like, okay, let's just actually, like, sketch something out, or, like, not depend on the ways in which it makes, you know, there's so many things that make it easy now, but it doesn't make it better.
Yeah, for us, it's like, can we be interesting without Illustrator or Photoshop or something?
Yeah.
Can we just, like,
actually make a collage.
Think of cool concepts and, It's very cool. What are some of the most helpful things that you all have spent money on as business owners, as far as tools, books, people?
Usually when we say tools in interviews, it doesn't mean like literal tools, so you can choose whichever kind of tools there are. Usually.
I mean, greenhouses for us, because if we didn't have greenhouses to extend the season for us, it would just be outdoor production, which would mainly be
4 or 5 months.
5 months of the year. So greenhouses for sure like have been worth it, because it helps us retain employees, because we have flowers for longer, and also just helps spread out the time that we have to make the money.
And it gives us a superior product coming out of a greenhouse too, so we can get more revenue from it. The barn helped as far as processing space. Before we were doing it underneath a tent in the driveway, and so we got a barn with a concrete floor that we could roll wheels, shelves, and stuff around.
And employees for sure.
But employees have been the biggest expense.
The biggest expense, but also like an investment that has been totally worth it. Like that's a question that we get asked a lot, is like, you know, I started this business, and like, how do you know when you know, isn't it scary when you're about to hire employees, or like, how do you know that it's time? And like, we just say like, it's worth the investment to know that you're gonna like get done at a more regular hour, and you're always gonna be the fastest at whatever it is that you're having that employee do, but the value is that, like, if they're doing it, that means that your time is spent doing something else.
Yeah.
So
in
just
our
like,
field, we'll always be the fastest.
yeah, but just like, just realizing that, looking at them as more of an investment than just like an expense.
Right. Yeah.
Like if I, even with like training and stuff, we've learned that like it's worth the time in the beginning to train people really well, even though you feel like you don't have the time to do that, or you're like, wasting a lot of time when you could be like getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Like
Pays off
even
in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
And we really only get one opportunity a year to spend solid training time. Because we only hire once a year.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And then you need that person to be there.
Yeah.
Because if they're not there in July, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
So, and is there anything else? I
Our
mean,
website.
yeah.
Our website.
No, seriously,
Yeah,
though.
I
We
do
get so
think-
many compliments
We
on
like
it.
laugh every time someone says
And
that. guys.
no,
This is
and
we always
Really?
get this answer. Yeah.
because we...
It's nice. It's not like, I don't hate the answer. It's not
No,
the
but
wrong answer.
it's
just-
true, though. Like, I feel like, other growers, because we write for that, like, magazine or whatever,
Yeah.
like, we do have other growers that, like,
Check it out. Yeah.
that check it out, and, like,
Yeah.
brides from out of town and stuff like that, and, like...
So you probably
There's
way
a
better
lot.
than
I don't
the
know if
past
you've
website.
seen, like... I don't know if you've seen farmers'
I
websites.
have. I think you showed me a few when we first worked together, and I was like,
It's like, that's something that, like, when we talk at conferences, we're like, please, like, answer your emails or, like, post a photo or, like,
Yeah.
I know that you're, like, out in the dirt, but, like, all of that stuff is just totally, like, worth it. Like, get a logo, put it on your stuff, like, when it leaves.
Well, we talked about it when you first walked in, like us investing in renovating our space was like us saying, I need to let go of this. This isn't what I need to spend my time trying to figure out how to put a window in a wall. That's
Right.
not going to be the thing that I should spend time on. It's a good investment.
Yeah.
And even as a farmer, like, I feel like, the idea of a farmer is I could do everything. But there's a lot of stuff I contract out for other people to do because they're just way better at building something.
Yeah. It's like knowing what you're good at. What you're not.
And knowing what I'm willing to let my employees try and figure out and what I'm versus what I'm just going to pay a professional to do it to.
Or like what you said, Gretel, like being okay with them taking longer still will save you time and money. Like they don't have to actually be as fast as you for it to be worth it. Has been something I've learned.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Rapid fire questions for everybody.
Okay.
1, best book that's helped you with business or think about things differently? You guys, because I know you guys read. That's why.
Well, I mean the Organic Farmers Business Handbook,
Yeah.
but for like a general one, I would say the E-Myth.
I was going to say Eat That Frog, which is what I've been listening to the last couple of weeks.
Cool. What is that? That's a frog
about so eating the frog is knocking out the first thing at the beginning of the day. Eating that frog, the biggest, ugliest frog, right at the beginning, and so. I'm trying to manage my time better because I do feel like I spend so much time like managing other people that I don't get things done, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be that way. I can still be accomplishing things while the crew is out there doing stuff, and I just check in. So about prioritizing my list and what brings the most valuable to the company.
Yeah.
And so one thing he talks about is seeing what 3 things that I contribute most to Sunny Meadows, and then me putting all my energy into those 3 things when I can.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
But also part of that book is like, accomplishing the biggest task at the beginning. So like I tend to like, I'll just answer these few emails and like do like a warm up and then I'll tackle the big thing. And so like we were listening to that book and I was like, okay, I needed to plan our like ranunculus and anemones and that, like, because you have to order stuff almost a year ahead of time of like when it needs to be like planted and so when it needs to bloom. So I was like, I'm gonna do this morning because this book like told me to do it.
It's the most important thing.
And I like didn't answer emails and I didn't go into Evernote or like do any of that. I just like hopped right into it and got like a huge chunk of it done. And it's easy to feel like emails are I mean, emails are endless, but you're like, oh, I'll just answer a few, and then like you kind of get
2 hours
sucked
later,
in.
you're like,
what? And then you're like, I didn't do anything that was
And then
actually on my list
responded.
today.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I always say for every one I would archive, 2 would come in. I'm like, they're like mating in my inbox.
But I think that that Entree Leadership book was a good book too. Good. I mean, especially, you know, once you have employees, like leadership for sure. And
there's still a lot. There's a lot of farming publications too.
There's a lot of farming
you guys stay
books.
pretty deep into that.
Yeah, but I mean, we've also been reading a lot of business books lately, so. Did some
couple the last couple years.
Well, I read Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and that's like he's really inspired by rappers. And so like he talks about he'll like have a lyric at the beginning of a chapter or whatever, but
that's
then
key.
but
that's
then
how I judge books. Yeah.
But then he talks about things like, you know, hiring your friends and like just kind of the stresses of like building a business.
Yeah.
But
that's cool. Allie, what about you?
I don't really read business books, but I read one once that I loved called Design as a Job.
Oh, yeah.
By Mike Montero, and I think that's how you say his name. But it's like shifting designers' perspectives from you're an artist to know you're like, this is a job that you're doing for someone. And it gets really technical with just like thinking through how to sell yourself, how to have a contract. But the overall theme is you're providing a service for a client. Like you're not selling artwork at a museum, you know? So you have to be a good business person. And I give it to a lot of like design interns, and overall I just like that mentality of he's one of the people on Twitter, the author, who's like, why are designers talking crap about their clients on Twitter? Like, these people pay you. If if you like aren't getting treated well, then you're probably not leading your clients well. So I think it's I read it like, gosh, probably like 5 years ago, and it's good.
Yeah.
That's about the only business book I think I've read in the last 6 years.
I'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, he recaps me.
I read a book. I kind of sometimes like finding, because in the business world, like business books come up every, whenever it's new, it gets marketed a ton, and then it's just overdone. And then the ones that stand the test of time. So I love going through like half-price books and finding an older business book. And by older, I mean, it doesn't have to be old. But there's a book, I can't even remember the name of the author. It was by one of the people who was at the time Resource Interactive, the agency here. So one of the people who worked there put it forward. And it was kind of they've always kind of been pretty early in the technology game. They've always been a little bit ahead of the curve with where tech is going and how consumers are going to interact with it, and then guiding brands and how to play on the online space. So they were teaching people how to use social networks when that was like not a thing brands were paying attention to. They have a book called, if you look up The Open Brand, and it just talks about how to let your customers kind of inform your brand and talk to your business and how to engage with them. And OPEN is an acronym that stands for something. Where I think if I don't remember what it was, but if anybody, I remember reading it now being like, these were people who were ahead of what was going to be happening now, and it's totally correct. And I've thought, because of the time that it was written, it's actually a really good book for a lot of our clients who struggle online with exactly how you talked about. A lot of farmers are like working their ass off, making really good stuff, but can't find time to respond to email, can't find time to post a thing on Facebook or update their website. And you're like, you have to do that stuff because that's where your people aren't with you in the field. Like they're with you there. And you get to have, you guys have done a great job of developing real relationships with your florists and designer, like all the people who are buying stuff from you. So that book I thought was fascinating in that it was a little early as far as social networks, but it actually works well for people who are struggling with it because it kind of breaks it down into very kind of big inner language. Or I feel like right now everybody gets so stressed out with how to use a hashtag. You're like, that's not the most important thing in the world. Like figure out how to post consistently and talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also read like kind of, I don't want to say self-help books, but like, about like mindfulness or...
What's been a good one?
Right now, I'm reading Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, which
okay,
I really
guess
like.
I would consider that like a huge business book. I mean, just in like how to
it's just a
lead
large
or
book.
be a human being, you know, in the business that you build. But I've been reading that for like 6 years. Like I read 5 pages at a time and try to like marinate on it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's killer. That book is. I think probably one of the saddest things is how quickly you can read through that book, and people should spend 2 years eating it up all the time.
Good. Yeah.
The book that you read that we buy everybody.
Yeah.
What book? You can't remember it?
No, I can't remember it at all. The one we bought for Paige and the one about your...
Positive Intelligence.
Positive Intelligence.
Oh, yeah, that one's a really good one.
Really?
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's about your judge. I mean, about like the judge inside you, judging everybody, judging yourself, judging situations and stuff like that. And then your
accomplice
saboteurs.
Yeah, they said everyone's judge has accomplice saboteurs. So you take a test to like determine what are your top like saboteurs. Basically, like what sort of thoughts do you allow to like take over your productive like mind. So positive intelligence is the side of like, you know, is the side of it that you want to be using more often. And so like kind of identifying that you're judging yourself and like allowing yourself to kind of disconnect from that as like a thought and not thinking like this is who I am, but
or
more
judging the situation too.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that one was a really good one.
I think that's good.
What was the other one that Nonviolent Communication?
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Yeah.
There's like a joke in there about you guys are married and work together and you have to have a nonviolent communication.
Some joke.
There's a joke there.
But we'll link all these because I think those are all, every book that's been said is like super helpful.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Last question.
We read a lot, so.
Favorite?
I read a lot of fiction. Doesn't help.
We were talking about fiction. Just kidding. Last question. Best restaurant in Columbus that you love to go to? Because I know we've talked about this a number of times and I just like talking about it because I'm also kind of hungry right now. So, where do you love to go?
I say Sycamore.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one.
Sycamore.
Yeah.
Best restaurant in town.
No, just your favorite. We don't have to. This isn't like a.
I also really like Barcelona scallops. So, but that's kind of like fancy restaurant.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
But the Sycamore, I mean, we like anything kind of in that family of restaurants. Like we like Harvest and
Harvest is good.
Those are all
we
solid.
like Curio, the cocktail bar.
Fantastic.
What's his other restaurant called?
Cosecha or whatever.
Oh, their new one.
Cosecha Cocina.
Yeah, I didn't like it
Mexican
as
one.
much. But
Well,
don't
we
put that
like
in
Salt
much.
and Pine.
We like Salt and Pine,
And
but
then it closed down.
Yeah.
I love, it doesn't, what?
No, I'm excited to hear what you
I
say.
love El Camino.
Yeah.
I think their
Oh,
tacos
yeah.
are the best. They're my favorite tacos.
Their tacos are killer.
Really?
Yeah.
No one really like talks about them, and they're
No.
never really busy. But I think they're.
No.
I think they're. What kind of meat do I get?
Carnitas.
Carnitas. I think their carnitas
Yeah.
are like the best.
I think the meat in the tacos is
Yeah.
amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
And their chips are good. Their service is not the best.
But
You
it's
can
been
put that
better.
in there.
It's like trending in a good way.
Upward. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, Dirty Frank's is like my
Yeah.
safe place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like Dirty Franks.
But it's
a
not
lot,
going to
too.
win an award for
Right,
like
but
best.
that's not what you asked.
No, but favorite for sure. I always say like I'll go to Dirty Frank's with anyone who invites me ever.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, we were just in Philly, and like eating at places that are new, I always think like, what restaurants have I now tried here in Columbus? Because I just am like lazy. But when we were in Philly, the 3 restaurants we ate at, I just like loved so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it just because it's familiar? Like Columbus just is home, that when you're in a new restaurant, you're like, oh, this is just so great.
Yeah.
But anytime we travel, we come back and we're like, we need to be more like tourists in
Yeah.
our city.
Well, the other thing is being a little mindful of your diet. You
When you're
avoid
home,
a lot
you're
of
in a
places,
routine.
you know.
Yeah.
And where when we went to Philadelphia, you were like maybe you'll lax a little bit in.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like check out the kitchen situation in
Right.
this random place my friend took me. So.
Right.
Yeah. We also have a couple places right around us. Bangkok is a really good Thai place that we like a lot. We eat there so much they know my voice on the phone. And then Taco Riendo, which is a little hole in the wall taco place It's like next to like a beer drive-through, like in the hood.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah.
it's
good?
but it's really good.
Really?
Though. Yeah.
I think also how close you are to things really. I
Yeah.
mean, the restaurants that we are like our go-tos are because they're nearby.
Yeah.
Like Tat Vietnam Noms is like the new Vietnamese restaurant owned by La Viet in like the North Market. It's the same family, and it's so good, but it's also pretty close. And I wonder if it was like across town. If
Like we never went to Acre in
Clintonville until
Clintonville,
it's like
and now
across
it's
the street.
like across the street, and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
Acre sounds great. We should get lunch there all the time. We're like,
Yeah.
it's one of our favorites. Like,
It's like
literally
what's
'cause it's
proximity.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some like really amazing sushi at this place called Yoshi's, but it's like in Hilliard
Yeah.
or like Dublin. Like really, it's like
Oh,
30-minute
Oh,
drive
yeah.
for us since we're like on the southeast side of
Totally.
town. So, but that I mean,
It's like a trek. Yeah.
yeah, makes you sound kind of spoiled. that
We
you
also
wanna
eat
drive
at
30
Ob a
minutes.
lot too. Just
Oh, we
because
do
one
eat
at
at
Bexley.
Ob,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Obviously.
don't have a lot
food.
of options.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love going to like good Indian restaurants because I'm not like great at cooking it. And the one time I did make a meal, it took so long, and not that that's not worth it, but I was
Right.
like, oh, I need to appreciate this more
Yeah.
when I go eat it, and it's
That's
great.
why it's $15.
Have you been to Banana Leaf?
No,
It's over there in Bethel.
I
It's,
haven't. Is it good?
It's really good. Yeah, it's a
Vegetarian.
vegetarian
Okay.
Indian restaurant,
I'll
but they
have to
also have
check
a
it out.
party room. So like we'll go there with the staff, like if it's somebody's
Oh, that's a
birthday
good
or
idea.
something, because they can fit like 30 people in the party room.
Okay.
And
I'll
it's a
check it out.
buffet, but you get like. You have like there's like 9 appetizers or something
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh.
So like the first time nobody told me that that's like how it worked,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, yeah, filling up with appetizers, and then they were like, and now the buffet is ready for you, and you're like, oh my god, like nobody
full.
told me that there was like a full buffet
Yeah.
to follow this. I was
You're like,
not
I ate a
prepared.
full meal of appetizers.
Yeah, I did not read the instructions before I started eating, so.
That's hilarious. Well, now we'll know. We'll have to go.
Dang, this episode is just a good, like,
It's diverse.
yeah, no, I'm sitting like,
Now
you
you're
could
hungry.
go out to eat off for like a week or a couple weeks. Off of this,
Right.
We like to eat, so
Yeah,
I feel
we
like
do too.
that's one of the things that we do
Yeah.
is like go out to eat.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the
Get
things
off the
of
farm.
when you work a lot, especially when you work so much from your home, that making food at home becomes you're like, okay, I'm still at the office, right? And so
Yeah.
getting out for a second, especially being married, Allie and I find we have to do that just to. I was like, hey, I need to like get out of our normal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes like I'm like I need to be around people that are not my employees. Like I love them, but I also
Yeah.
need to like go be around my friends and just
Yeah.
like totally
And not talk about work.
disengage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've become such close friends with our employees. All
Yeah,
of us.
and a lot of them like stay after work and we have beers, which like turns into us going out to dinner. And,
Yeah.
which I love it
You
because
still
we're
need
farm
diversity.
family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also like need a break sometimes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work there. If we ever get in trouble, I'm gonna try
Yeah,
to get
we'll
a job out
apply.
there.
Adam would be a
I-
better worker than I probably would be, but
But you
in different
In a
ways.
different way, yeah,
Yeah.
way different ways. Because there's a bunch of other ways that you're like.
I was just
I'm
thinking
mostly
of
like I'm
farming.
pumped about the like getting beers and getting dinner afterwards part.
He'll sneak in at the last
I'll
hour.
like go through the farm work to get to the beers
Got
and
it, yeah.
hang out.
Yeah.
You would just be like, I'm just gonna work and go home.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah, it's been really
and-
cool. We'll have we have a link to the show so all the notes will be in there, all the links
Yeah.
will be in there, and then
Website. All your
if people want to
social.
check you guys out somewhere, it's Sunny Meadow Flower.
Sunny Meadows.
Sunny Meadows. I typed this wrong when we were working on your website. I type it wrong every other time.
Really?
Meadows
Yeah.
plural farm
Meadows-
singular.
Yeah,
Sunny
It
Meadows
throws a lot of
Flower
people off
Farm.
when we're sending out, like telling people our email.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
a long name too.
Multiple meadows, but just one farm
Yep.
on multiple meadows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sunny Meadows Flower Farm.com
And on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, check out their accounts because it's beautiful.
Because it's just
Yeah.
flowers.
Yeah.
Which is pretty.
It's like the most photogenic thing you can ever have an Instagram account for. So yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
it's fun.